We're looking at the 7 steps of developing a team. We're on step number 5. Step number 5 is once you have this, you've identified the similar tasks in your exhaustive list and you've grouped them all together so you have these groups of related tasks together. Step number 5 is take the group of tasks and give that group a name. This name is the role that you're going to call it, that you're going to fill as part of your team. This is very, very crucial. You've just about created your job description. This is why at this point is why you want to be so specific, even down to the smallest tasks and the minutia, because this role you're shaping, you're identifying what are the positions that you need in your organization in order to accomplish this great vision that God has placed on your heart for this team, for this organization, for this ministry. And so this is going to be very helpful for you because as leaders, when we delegate, you want to delegate a role, not a task. This is a big difference. Like for me, what happened is at first I started delegating tasks and I realized that this was becoming more of a micromanaging. When we delegate tasks, we develop followers who do what they're told. We create yes men that are just waiting for you to tell them what the next thing that they're going to do. When you say jump, they'll jump. When you say move, they'll move, and they won't walk until you tell them to go. And you don't want that. You want to develop leaders who will lead other teams. You want individual thinkers, people who can use their God-given talents and their abilities to dedicate them to the Lord's service. This is what we're seeking to do in the Army of Youth. And if you're delegating tasks one by one, it is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish as a team, as a whole here. So delegating roles has a very powerful benefit because when you delegate a role, people take ownership. You develop leaders who take initiative. When someone recognizes, by giving this group of tasks a name, you are giving a position, you are giving a title or a name that the team member can identify with. So then they could say, I am a YouTube manager, or I am the head of the kitchen, or I am the engagement manager for the YouTube channel, or whatever the case may be. I am the graphic designers, or whatever the case is, you're giving them a role in your ministry, on your team, that people can identify with, take ownership, and say, okay, within these tasks, I have been invested the authority to accomplish, to take initiative, to make the decisions, and do what I need to do in order to fulfill the work that is appointed to me. This is where Daniel, chapter 12, I believe, it says, Daniel shall stand in his lots. We are each to stand in our God-given lot. We have an appointed work to do. So this is where you're able to appoint an individual who's able to identify what they're doing. And so at this step, you want to, as you're having these roles, you want to plug them into an organizational chart. Once you have your org chart, you're able to see what are the different levels of leadership that are required in order to help this team to function. You might realize that where one may sound more like a role, you'll realize, whoa, that's a lot of responsibility for one person. They're going to require a team to accomplish that, depending on how big your vision is or how big the goal is that God has put in your heart. So when you see that there's these teams, here is where you're able to identify what are the teams necessary to fill in your ministry, and what are if there's a team, there needs a team leader. So you're going to have different levels of leadership that are able to help equip and train the different people, but you want to give them a name for each part. You want to take that group of tasks and give it to them. And this is where it was important to identify between a revolving task or a project task. Projects are done one time. You might be able to find a volunteer or a worker who could help with a project, and then that's all you'll need them for. But the revolving task, you want to find someone who has a role, because then they'll take ownership of that revolving task. Otherwise, you'll do what I did. Don't do what I did. In the beginning, I took revolving tasks and I asked someone, hey, would you be able to do this? And then they'd go off and they'd do it. And then give them another revolving task, and then that is totally unrelated, not in the same category, and they're working on that, and they work on that and they get it all accomplished, and then they don't do it again, but it's revolving, so it needs to be done next week too, but they haven't taken ownership of that task or of that revolving nature. They may not even recognize that it needs to be done every week. And I'm like frustrated. I'm thinking, well, why aren't they taking initiative? And they're kind of frustrated because they're like, man, I don't really know where I fit in this picture. I feel like I have a bunch of random things that I'm being told to do. And it's just like whatever's on Enoch's mind, that's what I'm working on, and this is like I don't really have a place or an identity, and I'm confused, and so people are just waiting. And what happens, and this is where a lot of leaders fail in building their team, because they're delegating tasks, the people are going to them constantly. Okay, I finished the task, what's the next thing you want me to do, Enoch? And I'm just like and then so I got to try to find work for them to do, and I'm like what is, and I got to stop what I'm doing. I'm focused on something. The Lord is making progress in this area, so I got to put aside that and think, well, what is, and I got to plan work for them. It's not systematic, it's spur the moment, and I'm like, okay, well, do this random thing, and then they're working on that, and maybe it's not the thing that needs to be done right now, and so they go off and do that, and then three other people are coming to you and saying, okay, I did that, what am I supposed to do? And you're just like, oh, I don't have time for three people, and then you're like, rather than explain to them what they need to do, I'll just do it myself. And then you take on more responsibility. They stay idle. They're waiting for you to respond. And there's all of this miscommunication, and you're frustrated. People aren't taking ownership. They're frustrated that they're being micromanaged and being told every little thing what to do, and they don't know what to do next. And so there's a lot of dysfunction and disorder. Don't do that. Delegate role. Delegate responsibility. And when you delegate responsibility, you give them the authority to accomplish what they need to make the decisions in that realm, in the sphere that you have laid out in your job description. You have very clear expectations of exactly what the role entails for them to take ownership of it. You want to tell them beforehand so that they are able to take these revolving tasks and get them accomplished and get them finished and do what needs to be done. And you'll find when I started doing this, oh, the difference that it made. People were accomplishing things while I was sleeping. People working in different time zones. People are laboring on things. They see a challenge and they're making decisions. They're overcoming the obstacles. They're finding solutions without coming to me. And it's a blessing because we're able to go further faster and we work together as a team. And so this is going to be really helpful when you take that group of tasks, you give them a name, and then you create your org chart of what are the positions that need to be filled. This is your organizational strategy. So you're seeing the army that needs to be developed and all of these positions. So when someone raises their hand and they're saying like, I want to help, you're like, okay, these are the roles that need to be filled. What would you like to do? And this is a tremendous, valuable skill for you, especially in step 6. So I'm going to tell you what you're going to do once you have this list and how to fill them, because that's logically going to be the next question on your mind. It seems like a lot of people, how are we going to find them? I'll share with you in the next video.